Welcome to the AI for You Cafe today. Today we have the title Combating Biased AI Using Blockchain Technology, Unbiased. Our speaker is Sukesh Kumar-Tedler, and he's the CEO and founder of Unbiased. Thank you that you're here, Sukesh. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. As always, we just have a rather relaxed start because the audience is coming in, and it always takes some minutes until everybody's there. We are here in a live show. My name is Carmen McWilliams, and I'm the moderator and organizer. I'm the director of the company Grassroot Arts, who is partner in the European AI for You project. Please take notice that this session will be recorded. The link for the recording you'll find on the AI for You platform and soon on our new public AI for You YouTube channel. No confidential information shall be shared in this cafe session. All speakers express their personal views and opinions. This is not necessarily the official AI for You project opinion. And as always, I'm welcoming the audience. Thank you that you take the time to be with us. And I'm very happy also that you're here and interact, hopefully, after the presentation with Sukesh by asking questions. You have a special panel on your right side. You can write in your questions, and it's a chat question panel, as well as you can also raise your hand. You should find a hand sign, and I will see that you raise your hand, and after the presentation, I may give you the mic if you wish. Then you can speak directly to Sukesh, but it's up to you. You can write it or you can raise your hand. I once more introduce what the Web Cafe is, and then we coming to the show. What is the AI for You Cafe? It's public and offers a series of live web sessions, and it gives insights into the European AI scene. Participants get the chance to share knowledge and experiences and meet stakeholders from various areas of AI research and applications. So now it's time to introduce you again. Hello, Sukesh. Hello.
Hi, Carmen, and thanks for having me here today.
Thank you for joining us. It's great. So I introduce you shortly and then give you the mic and the moderation.
Okay.
So Sukesh Kumar-Tedler is the CEO and founder of Unbiased. He is 25 years old, a young entrepreneur challenging the implication of technology on the societies at large. I must say here, you are the youngest speaker yet in our cafe. Yay!
Yay!
In his current role as the CEO, he is driving the innovation of building ethical and transparent AI solutions that help fight complex technical and societal challenges like bias in AI, machine learning and big data, fake news, and misinformation using blockchain technology. Shortly, I also introduce Unbiased. His company, Unbiased, is an award-winning Swedish tech startup. So you're located in Sweden, I heard, in Göteborg.
Yeah.
Building solutions to fight biased AI, fake news, and misinformation. Innovations include unbiased data marketplace, search engine, and social gateway. Its first offering is its data marketplace platform, which will help different industries and enterprises working with AI and machine learning applications by providing structured training data in a transparent and trustworthy fashion. The team will offer a wide range of services, including real-time data collection, annotation, labeling, and analytics. Through its solution, Unbiased aims to contribute toward innovation and the betterment of societies. So, and Thank you. And if you need more information, you just Google Unbiased. So now I will hand over the moderation and the mic to Sukesh, as I think you can introduce yourself even better. And we're looking forward to your presentation. I gave you now the moderation. So now
Yes.
you can slowly open the presentation if you can.
Yeah, just a second. You
I
should
will
be able to see my screen now.
I see perfectly your screen and everything is great. So
Yeah, okay, great. Can you see my screen?
yes. Yes.
Okay. Great. Thanks for having me today, and I'm really glad to be on AI for EU Cafe. I have been looking forward to this for quite some time. Yeah, and welcome to everyone. Yeah, so today I'm going to talk about Unbiased and how we are combating biased AI with blockchain technology. So I'm just going to present a brief introduction about myself, followed by a brief introduction to blockchain technology itself. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with blockchain technology. So I thought I could just put together a short presentation about blockchain, followed by then I'm going to talk about AI and challenges of bias. And then we are going to discuss more about Unbiased and the solutions that we offer to our customers today.
Great.
So what is Unbiased, right? So it's a transparent and trustworthy data platform for AI. And we also enable data economies for enterprises. So it's a startup. We started back in 2018 here in Sweden. We are 2 founders. I'm going to present my team at the end, very end. So Carmen gave a good introduction about myself. My name is Sukesh, and I also am the chairman of Swedish Blockchain Association. And since I sent in a request for webinar, I actually turned 26 now. So that has been changed. And then I'm also the CEO and founder of Unbiased, and I also do blockchain and innovation consulting as well. So I'm involved in quite many projects here locally when it comes to blockchain, AI, and fintech sector. So this is a bit of background about myself. Yes, what is our mission with Unbiased? So as Carmen mentioned before, our mission with Unbiased is to fight biased AI, fake news, and misinformation. So how are we going to do that? I'm going to present you that today. So before talking about any technology or anything, I just want to present this graph, which kind of explains our user behavior in different scenarios today. Actually, I didn't want to put any title to it. We can relate this graph to technology adoption, or even in the current crisis as well. Like if we look at the coronavirus, for instance, like everyone denied that it's going to spread out to so many people and it's going to be like a pandemic right now that we are seeing. And then it's anger, confusion, depression, crisis. And now people are starting to accept, okay, this is a pandemic and we have to take precautions, and maybe eventually we will generate new confidence. But I think this is applicable to different scenarios, because why I presented this today is because we are talking about new technologies and new innovations in this webinar. So I want you to be open-minded. I want you to ask questions. So if you have any questions or if something is not clear, please raise your hand or ask at the end of the presentation. So let's start with an introduction to blockchain. So what is blockchain? Why? What does it mean? And why does the blockchain become mainstream these days? So I really like this picture. When I talk about blockchain, I always present this to the audience. So this kind of represents our socio-economic society today that we live in, right? We have a banking system, we have the governments, and then we are the people, the normal people. So it kind of represents it. It's kind of like it's kind of funny, but this is the reality, right, that we live in today. So we have these banking systems where we store the money, and the governments keep funding these banking systems to distribute money to the people. Yeah, with the latest announcements of US as well, printing $2 trillion or even more, diluting the currency and just keep on printing, right? So we think we are living in a democracy, but at the end of the day, this is what the reality looks like. And why I presented this is because it kind of relates to the reason why blockchain technology came into existence in the first place. So let's talk about a bit of history of blockchain. So blockchain is a technology. It doesn't represent an application itself. Bitcoin, for example, is an application of blockchain technology. So the blockchain technology came into existence in October 2008 when the financial crisis happened. There was some anonymous group of people or person named Satoshi Nakamoto. They released a white paper talking about peer-to-peer digital currency and presenting the concept of Bitcoin and blockchain technology. And I kind of believe that that's when the new era of decentralization and the open source technology became mainstream from that point in time. And it kind of changed and evolved the technology that we see today in terms of open source, but also in terms of the decentralization and the current internet, how it's being used and how it's being centralized today. So what's the key essence of blockchain technology? Blockchains enable trustworthy environments. So if we look at the picture on the screen, where we have two examples, right? So if you're doing a transaction between two organizations, whether it can be a financial transaction or some kind of an agreement, or it could be anything in general. So in the current society that we live in today, we go through a centralized authority, like whether it's a bank, whether it's a lawyer or a court system or some other institution, public institution. So there is always a third party involved in the process, which kind of leads to more additional cost. But at the same time, it adds some friction in the process as well, and it creates a trusted environment, but still it adds all this additional stuff. So when you have a blockchain based application or a system, you don't need to have this third party involved in between, because if we are doing a financial transaction, we are doing between two parties, right? So if I wanted to send money to India, for instance, I don't want to have 10 people taking a small percentage of the fee in between, right? So this is the thing, like with blockchain technology, we can enable peer-to-peer transactions, whether it's financial or legal or any contractual agreements. And the network itself makes sure the validity of these transactions, and also makes sure that you are the rightful owner in order to do a particular transaction. So in that way, blockchains enable trustworthy environments. So I just mentioned that blockchains enable trustworthy environments. Let's discuss a bit more like on how does they enable trustworthy environments. If we look at this picture, you can see a sequence of blocks connected together. And I think as you are in the AI domain, you are more familiar with functions and hashes, for instance. When you pass a piece of data to a function, you generate a unique hash, right? So here a block represents a piece of data, a list of transactions. It's like a ledger of transactions at a given time. So when you pass it through a particular function, it generates a hash, unique hash. It cannot be changed. If a piece of data is changed, the unique hash also changes. And this hash is linked with in the next block, you link the previous hash of the previous block. So in that way, you're basically interlocking all the blocks and creating a chain of blocks. That's what means blockchain, right? So the blockchain itself is immutable because you cannot, because it uses mathematics and cryptography. So when you have a set of data recorded on blockchain, you generate a unique hash, and you can't change it because you have to go back in time in order to do that, and that's not possible. And in that sense, the data you store on blockchain is immutable to any changes. So you can go back in time and do any audit of what are the events that happened at what point in time and so forth. And the third important thing about blockchain is the smart contracts. So smart contracts kind of correlates with the traditional contracts that we do in any business setup. So if we take a simple example of a land deal, right? So if you're purchasing a property, so it's a transaction between two people, but you're putting together an agreement and involving, for instance, a realtor or a broker or a bank in between to validate the transaction, right? So in smart contracts, what happens is that it's kind of autonomous process. So you can go and look for information on blockchain and see, okay, whether this person is the rightful owner of this property. Can he do this transaction? And this is done using the public and private keys. So I have a unique key and identity on blockchain, so I can sign this transaction and facilitate this process. So in that way, you can establish these contracts and agreements between different people involved in any transaction. And this is applicable to AI industry as well. Like you can trigger different actions, for example, whether it's insurance algorithms or insurance related algorithms, or it can be autonomous cars. So you can trigger different kinds of smart contracts based on the actions that, based on different predictions of an algorithm as well. So there are different types of blockchains out there. There are public blockchains, permission blockchains, private blockchains, and so forth. I'm not going to dig much deeper into this. You can look at the, you can search for them on the internet. So let's talk about AI, and that's what we are going to do today. So when we talk about AI, it kind of is overlapping different concepts of machine learning, deep learning, NLP, and now we have another thing called transfer learning, transformers, right? So there are different things when we talk about AI. AI kind of overlaps and packages all these different technologies under one umbrella. So now we are in the age of AI, where when we talk about any algorithm, we have to think back and see what's the key essence of any algorithm. What does, how do you build an algorithm, right? So the data is the key essence. The data is the fuel in order to build an algorithm, machine learning algorithm, right? So if you want to build a rocket, as you can see in the picture, you need data, and then you build an algorithm, which is the engine, and that's how you run the rocket, right? So the data is the fuel for the era of AI. So, and we are going to talk a lot about data today. If we look at the challenges of AI and machine learning, so I think this is the familiar saying in the AI industry that algorithms are only as good as the training data, right? So if you train your algorithm with poor quality data, then your algorithm performance is bad. And if you train your algorithm with biased data, then your algorithm is going to be biased. As a developer, as an engineer, as head of an AI company, one must be sure that they are considering all these questions when it comes to building AI applications, because AI applications are nowadays being used in different scenarios and different contexts. Like whether it's healthcare or financial sector or legal sector, it's changing people's lives in different ways. So we have to start thinking through a perspective of okay, how does my application or my algorithm has an impact on people, and I think regulations are also playing a role in this right now, where the regulations are looking into, okay, what kind of regulations should we bring in order to emphasize on the need for good quality algorithms and unbiased algorithms, for instance. So if we look at the key problems, so bias is one of the biggest problem in AI and machine learning and NLP algorithms. And if you want to build an efficient algorithm, it's going to cost you a lot of time and money. If you want to collect the data from diverse group of people as well, it takes a lot of time and it requires a lot of capital as well. Okay, once you, there are many service providers out there, right, who can provide the data today if you pay them money. But the question comes in where, how do you establish trust in this data? How do you make sure that this data was sourced in an ethical way? And how do you make sure that this data wasn't generated by another algorithm like synthetic data? So there are algorithms which can generate synthetic data today. How do you ensure and trust that this data is created by people? And there is no transparency in the process today, because if you go to a service provider, everything happens behind the scenes. You get a data set, but you're unsure what happened with this data set. Is it sourced in an ethical way? Were the people paid efficiently? Were the people treated in a good way? But also, is it actually really done by people, or is it some synthetic data or some other algorithm which is creating this? The reason it is important to make sure that this is actually the data has integrity is because in the recent analysis by the founders or the creators of the ImageNet, they have been reviewing actually the ImageNet. This article was from Wired. This was in December 2019, where they were talking about ImageNet. So actually, ImageNet, I don't know how many are you familiar with it? ImageNet is the fundamental data set which boosted the innovation when it comes to autonomous vehicles or image recognition and computer vision domain itself in general. So I don't know, like, this is so weird for me. Like, when I came across this article, it was so astounding, because this was the fundamental data set in driving the innovation of computer vision domain. But the people who build this data set doesn't seem to have no idea of what's in that data set. Like, what kind of biases does this data set have? This data set is like 10 years old now, and now they're starting to de-bias this data set. So it's kind of crazy in my opinion, because many algorithms, computer vision algorithms, are based on this dataset, and we use ImageNet in many scenarios, in many applications today, and many algorithms are built based on that. So if the dataset itself has bias, then yeah, you have to ensure these kind of things doesn't creep into your own algorithms as well. And yeah, NLP. So now the latest kid in the block is BERT and transformer learning and this all cool stuff, which can generate automatic text, next text, and generate new articles and all this cool stuff. And the latest announcement from Google as well, right? So Google integrated 10% of their search results with BERT, for instance. So when we talk about transformer models, the transformer model is basically trained upon this huge amounts of data from the internet. It can be articles, books, Wikipedia, and so forth, right? So we aren't sure exactly what kind of data is there in these transformer models, what kind of data was used to train these models, and how they are tuned, for instance. So I kind of gave a test to it actually. You can go to a website called huggingface.co, where you can just test different models, different language models today. you can write a piece of text and press tab, and you can see what kind of predictions does it give. So I put it to test by giving some kind of controversial questions about equal pay for women, for instance, or about people of color. It kind of gives some kind of weird suggestions when it's predicting the next lines in the text. So we are using these algorithms as the fundamental building block in building new NLP and new innovations. But one has to ensure that these fundamental building blocks are not biased in one way or the other. So if you don't know actually what you're handling with, then I think the people who are building these algorithms should think twice before using them in different contexts and different scenarios. So this is also like an overview. If you look at the machine learning pipeline today, so it starts from collecting data, then to labeling data and training using chosen metrics and objectives, models deployed in production, and the effects you see, and the cycle goes and go on and on and on. So in each and every step, we as humans have our own biases. So whether it's developers or engineers involved in the process brings their own bias into the process as well. And there are many different kinds of bias out there today. It's prejudice bias or diversity bias issues with diversity within the teams. There is not equal gender, like equal people in the group, for instance. So one must ensure, I think European Union, for instance, came up with this good analysis in their white paper, but also in the checklist that they created before a couple of months, also kind of try to address these scenarios of bias and diversity within the teams of AI engineers or developers within an organization. And you can, like, once you go through this process without ensuring that there is human bias, it automatically creeps up into your application. And once it's in the machine, in a machine learning algorithm, it kind of affects your whole application life cycle. And nowadays, you see there was this announcement recently, I think it was in Delaware, if I'm not wrong. They passed this new law where you have to ensure that your algorithms, which are being used in recruitment processes, for instance, have to go through an audit and make sure that they're not biased. So I think we will see more and more of similar kind of regulations coming in the next years or so. So what can we do? So that's where Unbiased comes in. So initially, when we started with Unbiased, our goal was to fight fake news and misinformation. But when we started doing research and building our own algorithms, we kind of realized soon that there weren't any diverse data sets. The data sets that we found, for example, related to sentiment analysis, were done by a small group of people, and we weren't sure exactly who are these people and how diverse were they. Excuse me. So we started trying to find ways to create our own data sets which are diverse, which have enough group of people, and we wanted to build this in a transparent way. So we were looking for solutions, and our experience with blockchain technology kind of helped us to formulate this idea of data marketplace. So when we talk about Unbiased, it's three parts. So it's data marketplace is the first stage. And in the second stage, we are working on something called a search engine. And in third stage, we are working on something called social gateway. So our goal with these innovations is to address different issues in different levels. So for example, with the data marketplace, we are addressing the issues of human bias and quality in AI and machine learning training data sets. And this is at the algorithm level that we are focusing on. And in the next level, we are focusing on how the news is propagating, how the fake news is propagating across the internet and social media today, and what are the different public sentiments out there, and how can we present them in an easy search engine format. For example, if I would like to give an example for search engine, one good example would be like, if you go on Google today and try to search what's the public sentiment on Trump, you have to go through millions of links and comments and tweets and so forth to understand, okay, what this is the public sentiment. And oftentimes these results that you see on Google or Facebook or Twitter, they're personalized based on some kind of algorithm. So you don't really get to see the other sided opinion as well. So what we are trying to do with search engine is when you search what's the public sentiment on Trump, you have to be able to get like the overall opinion in a very simplistic manner with just a click of a search. That's what we are trying to do. And maybe in future we can also add functionalities like public sentiment on Trump related to healthcare or immigration or any other alternative keywords as well. So then we can try to use different NLP techniques and predict, okay, this is the public sentiment. But whenever you give a prediction or a result from an algorithm, one must always ask, like, okay, why should I trust this result, right? How was this algorithm built? So that's where like our data marketplace comes in and helps to establish the transparency layer and trust layer. And in a final phase, we want to build a social gateway where we want to ensure that any content being created on the internet is secured with the blockchain proofs and integrity. So these are the innovations of Unbiased, but today we are going to mainly talk about data marketplace. So what is data marketplace? So data marketplace consists of two sides. So one is a global workforce, where anyone, whether it's students or people working from home, right now this is a really good application because as many people are working from home and some people are out of jobs. Anyone with basic access to internet and basic understanding of English can work on these tasks. And our platform and our data generation engine provides you with tools like data collection tools or data annotation tools or labeling tools to build the data sets in an efficient way. And by combining these two parts, we plan to create the next generation data sets and algorithms used in different scenarios. And in the whole process that I just described, everything is documented using blockchain technology. So this is the pipeline, right? So in order to build an algorithm, you have different steps. What we want to do with this data marketplace is that we want to provide an end-to-end transparent solution so that if you want to go back in time and see what happened, why was this result generated? Let's say you built an algorithm and it gave a result or a prediction after being implemented in an application and providing services to your customers. But you want to see why was this particular result generated? Was it the data that was fed into the algorithm, or was it something else? Some considerations weren't taken in the process. So you want to be sure. So if you want to do that, you don't have any option today. You don't know what exactly happened behind the scenes. But with the complete audit trail of building an algorithm using our platform, you know exactly what happened with a particular algorithm at what point in time and so forth. And the data sets being generated have proofs and certificates. So this can also be used as a marketing tool for many companies. So when you're building an algorithm which is going to serve many customers in different scenarios, you want to ensure that they can trust your algorithm, right? Because nowadays we are seeing more and more news about AI and the trustworthiness. Can we trust AI or not? And if you are being transparent in the whole process, that kind of establishes trust to a certain level. So let's talk about kind of the flow of the whole process of the data marketplace. So if you're an enterprise or a researcher, you can come to the platform with a data request. Okay, you need a data set of images of street signs, let's say in Germany. So you come with that request. So so what we do basically, we kind of distribute this task to people in Germany, for instance. So people in Germany can go around the streets with their smartphones and take pictures of street signs and upload them back to the platform. And once you have results, you get a data set of street signs in Germany, but also now you have blockchain proofs and certificates. You have the quality and insights and analytics, but also you're empowering people and by sharing knowledge, but also involving them in your innovation process. So at the end of the day, when you use our solution, you kind of you're not only getting a data set, but you're helping out, whether it's students or whether it's people in different parts of the world, to get some extra income. And our main target group with these data sets generation is students. So we want to encourage students to learn more about AI and be part of the innovation process, because we believe that in the next 5 years or so, we will see more and more AI applications, and AI need for quality developers and resources. So when it comes to timing and need of this application, so today around 45% of the world's population uses a smartphone, and we are mainly talking, there is an increasing concerns about fairness and transparency in the AI applications. And recently the EU AI regulations mainly emphasizes the need for transparency and trust in data. And we are moving towards more user-centric approaches and circular economy, especially in Europe, for instance. And every company nowadays are trying to monetize on the data. So we provide a functionality on how you can monetize the data, right? So we are kind of enabling the data economies. Let me show you how. So these are some use cases of data marketplace today. So you can do data collection, for instance. One good example of data collection is, let's say you are trying to build a speech recognition algorithm where you need people speaking, let's say, Swedish language. If you go through the traditional voiceover services, you have to pay millions of dollars or euros in order to get this data set of 100 people speaking Swedish language. But if you use our platform, maybe students can work on this data set and get you this data almost in real time, but with blockchain proofs and geolocations, so that you can ensure that people in Sweden actually worked on this data set at this point in time, and so forth. And in data annotations, I think you're familiar, we have labeling, we have requirements to clean the data, structure the data to meet your specific requirements. And the interesting part comes in the next phase of our development, is where we want to create this marketplace where companies, whether it's Volvo or whether it's some healthcare providers today, so we want to provide functionalities where you can enable consent management systems, which means that the user who is actually generating this data or the owner of this data can share this data with other people or research firms or pharmaceutical firms, if we are talking about healthcare data, with consent. But also in exchange, the user can get some incentive, and the company handling this process can get some incentive as well. So we are providing the API and toolset needed to create value for the data which is like logged and sourced, closed in many scenarios today, many companies today. Our focus is on the 5 sectors that you see on the screen: customer service, mobility, smart cities, retail, and e-commerce. If I can say, I can actually confidently say that with this application, we can not only eliminate, we can not only combat biases to a certain extent, but also kind of combat climate change, for instance. So how, right? So if, for example, like if we need more and more pollution data, like how the pollution is being generated and how is it in different times in different parts of the cities. So one way of collecting this data is through cars. So almost each and every car is kind of connected today, and from all these cars, they have pollution sensors, for instance. We can crowdsource this data from all the cars in cities and use it to train some kind of AI model to do predictions. in optimizing the traffics, in reducing the pollution levels in the cities in different times, and so forth. So we provide all these services in terms of data collection and labeling. I'm not going to talk much in detail, but I think most of you are familiar. So in terms of the flow, as I mentioned before, you as a requester come to the platform, you can use it and you can get the proofs and certificates, and you can see a complete audit trail of what happened with your data set. In that way, we can kind of prevent, in that way, we can kind of enable data integrity to your data set. Yeah, and yeah, this is a simple example about different service providers out there and what kind of benefits you see using this kind of blockchain-based solution. And this is more about the company. Like, we have been awarded as one of the best AI and machine learning startup of the year in 2019. And we were selected for Social Impact Startup of the Year award as well during last year. But before talking about my team, I just want to talk briefly about, we discussed blockchain, we discussed AI, but if you look a bit deeper, these two technology domains kind of have different ethos. Because blockchains talk about more trust and transparency, whereas when we talk about AI, it's kind of black boxed. We talk about closed source. So how come these two kind of work together, right? So I think it's kind of like an interesting analogy to look at, but I think when you combine these two technologies in the way I kind of described, and I think you can find many other examples as well on the internet. I know that Microsoft is working on something similar. So kind of we are bringing one of the good things from blockchain and combining that with AI technology. So I think we kind of find these cross lines where these both technologies are interacting. I think if we follow the right path, I think we can build something innovative which supports data privacy, security, but also ensures that you have a complete transparency in the process, which kind of combats the issues of bias at later stages. And you can also hold the companies accountable for the actions that they're doing. That's it about my team. So we have a wonderful team. It's me and my girlfriend. We are the co-founders of Unbiased, and we have wonderful partners here in Sweden. And also we are part of the NVIDIA Inception program. We are still an early stage startup. We have been talking with many researchers and companies in trying to identify their challenges and trying to build a transparent AI and transparent world, transparent internet in the future. That's it. Thank you. And if you have any questions, I would be glad to answer your questions.
Yes, great. Thank you, Sukesh. This was super interesting. Wow. Thank you. And there are questions. Yes, the public has questions, participants, but as always, I take the first question.
Yes.
My question is in the moment, who are your reference customers for your basically unbiased data place? Do you have already people out there waiting for your solution?
Yeah, I think, well, we launched the first version of the application, like the beta version, in the first week of March. So soon, by the end of this month, we are targeting to launch the alpha version. But we do have, we have seen customer requests from China, for instance. They are interested in the customer service industry, where they're trying to build speech recognition algorithms, for instance, for different European countries. So they were looking for data sets for in that instance. But we also got some requests related to healthcare projects where they want ensure that the data being collected is done in a transparent way and with all the guidelines and processes in place. So yeah, we have been seeing requests, and I must say that I don't know how many of the audience are here from Sweden, but in Sweden there is this drive right now about AI Innovation Sweden, where they're trying to build a portal of Swedish datasets so that people can, and their target is to at least train 1 million Swedes. I think it was by 2025 or 2030 in the AI domain and the AI technology. So, and they're talking about data factory and the same solutions. How can they build these data sets of Swedish language, or it could be German, or it could be Norwegian as well.
Great. Thank you for your intensive answer. And here now comes the participants. I invite you to write down questions, and I start with Natalie. Hi, Natalie from Canada. No.
Hi.
The questions are, what is the governance of Unbiased to ensure diversity?
Great question. So to be honest, like, there is no real governance. We are a complete autonomous platform. We don't do any handling in the process. Everything is transparent. Each and every action that's happening on the platform is done by the people, and it's documented directly on the blockchain. So we cannot do transactions on behalf of the workers or people. So in that way, the whole process is transparent. So we are just building the technology and providing it in a transparent way.
Okay, thank you. And here comes a question by Luca Pidetti. By your opinion, is it possible to add the quantum computing as biased risk technology as the AI? That's the question.
Quantum computing, or?
Quantum computing. I can repeat if you want. By your opinion, is it possible to add quantum computing as biased risk technology?
I think it's a bit too early to say that, because I don't think we kind of when we talk about quantum computing now, we are kind of relating it to the sci-fi scenarios, but I don't think we are there yet. As of now, I think the quantum computers now can only perform some basic mathematical problems. When we talk about AI, we of course have to ensure maybe in the next 10 years we will see more developments in quantum computing and integrations in AI. I think then we have to really be sure that we don't run into any Terminator style scenarios, and we have to hold companies accountable. And I think the direction we are moving in, with the EU taking charge and also US taking charge in China, I think we are moving in the right direction. And I think even in this right direction, I don't think the regulations should be the key things that we have to emphasize on. I think we have to focus on how we can make the process transparent while ensuring that we're not contributing or open sourcing our innovations, or we're not deviating from our business models in any way. So I think that's where, like, our technology really helps, like using blockchain makes the process transparent and gives a complete audit trail. So yeah.
Yes, thank you. As time is running, Alessandro Saviotti, yes, the next question. If I understand correctly, you keep info about the source of data together with the data. How do you make sure that data users don't use this info in unintended ways? For example, tracking the position of the source, looking at the street data they provided.
Good question. So whenever someone is sharing or contributing to a data set, their personal information you cannot really identify or relate that to a particular person. So we use different kinds of technology-based solutions. So For example, in the example I mentioned, you are going on the street and taking a picture of a street sign, right? So we use gyroscope and different sensors within the phone to ensure that this was actually taken by a person in real time at this location. By the time you actually see that data set and go to that location, you might not see that person anymore. But in that way, we are ensuring the data privacy and respecting the GDPR and personal information of the users.
Okay, thank you. Yes, now comes the next question. What is your business model that you will offer for private and sensible data? This question is from Katarina Salamova.
Sensible data, was it?
Yes, will offer for private and sensible data.
Okay, so the business model is pretty straightforward. So you as a requester or customer comes to the platform and you request a data set.
Do you hear us?
And we take a platform fee in the process.
Sorry, you have to, now you have to say it again.
Okay, so I lost your audio, Carmen.
Now I hear me.
I can't hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, now I hear you.
Okay, I hear you too. You hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, now you can answer.
Okay, so our business model is pretty straightforward. So we get a request to the platform. We take a percentage as a fee of platform fee in order to facilitate the whole process. And the workers who are working on contributing to this data set gets a percentage as well. So they actually get the majority of the fees and we get a minority share of that fees.
Okay, good. And then, thank you. Next question. One moment. Loretta Anania. Sorry. How do you see the internet being more transparent in the future, more centralized, more decentralized, etc.? How do you see it?
Well, I personally would like to see it more decentralized, but yeah, I think we all have to work together in order to create a decentralized internet, whether with its innovations or whether it's bringing regulations and so forth. I don't think we have to be maybe in 5 years or 10 years from now, we shouldn't be in the same situation as we are in right now with these big centralized parties controlling pretty much the lifestyle of 6 billion people in the world today. So which isn't good.
No, I totally agree. Thank you. And now next question, Natalie Saint-Pierre. Have you considered working with Agenda 2030 framework to measure and communicate impact with global targets, for example, the societal development goals on gender equality? Example.
Yeah, we tried to reach out and apply for a couple of programs in Horizon 2020, but also in Agenda 2030. But my personal experience with this process is that it's really time taking, but at the end of the day, you don't get any explanation. We got rejections actually. We're not sure, like without any explanations and so forth. So we just decided that it's just not worth our time. We can instead focus on the development and taking this process much more faster than actually waiting to get a grant and get these collaborations. But we did cooperate with people who reached out to us from various organizations to date.
Okay, thank you. And now, because I'm a little bit speeding, we are going to the last question of Karin Tafur. She has a lot of questions, but you can, thanks for this webinar. My question is, what is the website you were talking about to find if a topic was biased or not just writing? Can you just told us about that website? You remember?
You mean Unbiased website or which one?
Yeah, to find if a topic was biased. you told in the presentation?
Oh, yeah. I can write it in the chat. If that's okay. It's huggingface.co. So during in this website, in this website you can test different models and see these are the language models. So you can test these models and see for yourself. Ask different critical questions and see what kind of predictions does it give, like in the next sentences and so forth.
Okay, great. So thank you. And the last, and this is for today, the last, Joseph Baker Brunbauer. Thank you very much for the presentation. How do you get the big amount of raw data sets? Are there any incentives or do you need to buy it? Will share people their data? That's the last question.
I think, well, you need to have some capital in order to build these huge data sets, of course, but we want to cooperate with researchers who are trying to build open source data sets, for instance. We want to do these cooperations and provide our platform so that you can reach out to a wider audience of people in order to build these data sets. We want to be open to our workforce as well and say that, okay, if you work on this open source task which you don't get paid for, you are contributing to the society and you get some kind of other rewards or something. So we still want to encourage researchers to reach out if they have really cool idea and a requirement. We would be glad to help you out with the platform and workforce.
Okay, thank you. So the time is running, more questions are coming in. So dear participants, if you have more questions, you can contact Sukesh as well as me. There are emails I think you have. You can ask these questions. We do have another cafe after this cafe at 4:30. That's why we are basically now have to end. I have to thank you. This is super interesting, and I hope we somehow can collaborate. I will also contact you, and it was a pleasure. And here now comes my last slide, as always, to end up this session. One moment, we have to just move it. So as the next cafe session is starting in about half an hour, and it's called AI for You and ICT 49 call. There the speakers are Patrick Atelier from Thales, he's the coordinator of the AI for You project, and Terry Nagellen from Orange, and they will provide relevant information for anybody who has interest to apply for this ICT 49 call. So maybe see you soon again. This is a different link of registration. If you're not registered yet, you can do it over the AI for You platform. Under events, you find that link. So thank you and have a good afternoon. Thank you, Sukesh, and see you soon. Huh?
Yeah, take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.